Welcome to Alive and Well, the podcast for the new era of high achievers. You're done burning out, and you're ready to lead, work, and live in a rhythm that honors both your brilliance and your body. I'm your host, Michelle Grosser. I'm a trial attorney turned nervous system strategist, and I've lived the burnout story. I know what it's like to chase your goals at the expense of your well-being. And I also know it doesn't have to be that way. Here, we're redefining success. It's where productivity feels peaceful, boundaries feel like freedom, and energy comes from within. Each week, I'll share practical tools for nervous system regulation, time mastery, and somatic strategies so you can show up with clarity, calm, and confidence in every part of your life. Because you, my friend, were given a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind. So here's to life and living it fully. This is the path to feeling alive and well. Let's dive in. Hey, it's Michelle here. Welcome to Alive and Well. Today, I want to have a conversation with you about something that has been quietly changing everything for me for the last few months. And I don't mean in that fluffy, like this is life-changing way that the internet loves to throw around, but I mean it in the most literal, very practical sense. And it's been the single framework that has kept me from leaking capacity all over the place. It's kept me from slipping back into functional burnout. It's kept me focused on what actually matters, especially in this particular season of my life. And it's so simple. It's so deceptively simple that your brain is probably going to want to dismiss it. But your nervous system is going to breathe a huge sigh of relief, I am telling you, when you start using this. So I read the book Essentialism by Greg McKeown. And in that book, he talks about this 90% rule. And I'm going to bring it to you guys with a nervous system twist. So we're going to get nerdy with it. But I think it's going to be really helpful. So let's just kind of start here with the fact that overwhelm isn't actually a time problem. Overwhelm is a capacity leak. And in my experience and what I've seen with the women that I coach is that it is caused by saying yes to things that your nervous system wasn't designed to hold, are not moving the needle, are energy suckers or drainers for you. Essentially saying yes to the wrong things. And a lot of high capacity women that I work with, they don't look disorganized, right? They're type A, they get stuff done, their calendars are full, they're organized, their Asana boards are tidy, right? Their kids are fed, their kids are clothed, responsibilities are handled. On the outside, it looks very much like they're doing it, they're holding so much, they're managing it all. I have looked like that. Most of my life, right? That's just how I run. On the inside, however, for the longest time, especially in adulthood, it was constant low-grade anxiety. It was rushing, even though technically I knew there was enough time. Irritability at all the small things. It was not wanting to be touched by my kids or husband by like 3 p.m. because I just couldn't handle it anymore. It was the afternoon brain fog that would set in. It was the doom scrolling or just the kind of checking out, zoning out instead of actually resting. And I think just feeling like I was living at, low battery mode all the time. That is not a busy calendar problem. It's an allostatic load problem. It's your nervous system running more load than it can actually sustain. And one of the main reasons this happens is that your life is filled with all sorts of things that are out of alignment, things that you're doing out of obligation, things that feel kind of important, things that are pretty much fine, but not the things that are deeply right, not 90% right. And all those sort of yeses are what takes you out. And I know for me, it's December 7th as I'm recording this, which means there's like invitations to all the things everywhere, right? It's kids events, it's book club Christmas parties, neighborhood gatherings, extended family travel, school activities, work-related social stuff. And then on the business side, And this has nothing to do with like this being in the holiday season, but just generally, my team's inbox is full of podcast guest pitches. Full. We probably get 20 or 30 a day, right? Can I come on your podcast? Will you speak at this summit? We'd love to feature you in this publication. And for the longest time, my metric for saying yes to these opportunities was like, does this seem good, right? Could this help somebody? Could this be useful for my business? Is this something my kids might enjoy? Which meant I was saying yes to a lot of like meh things. And then when those things would actually come, like where I'd have to actually show up, right? The debt became due. I was quietly paying the price in my body. I was feeling resentful. I was not present, right? I was dreading things. I was rushing around. I didn't have bandwidth for the things that actually matter to me. So in the last couple months, I started doing something radically simple, and I began running all of my decisions through this 90% rule at home and in my work. And it has been a nervous system intervention. It's so good. So the idea is that if something doesn't score at least a 90 out of 100 against my single most important criterion for that thing, right? Then it's a no for me. It's not like a maybe later. It's not even a let me think about it in 6 weeks. It's a no. And here's how it works in practice. So identify first the single most important criterion for this decision. So for me, I think this works best when I'm super clear on my goals and my values for that season. You identify the most important criteria for making this decision, not 10 things that are important, one. So if it was, right, it's the holiday season, maybe it's a social event, right? Maybe the most important criterion for you in this decision is, does this invitation, does attending this social event meaningfully deepen the relationships that matter most to me in this season, right? That's a criterion. Maybe for work, it's like, does this opportunity align with the strategic direction of my business over the next 12 months? And then based on that one single most important criterion, you score it. You score it from 0 to 100 against just that one criterion, gut level, intuitive, super honest, 0 to 100, right? How much does this move the needle on this particular criterion? 0 to 100. Anything under 90, you guys, is an automatic no. Oh, this is so freeing. Anything under 90 is an automatic no. So 1, that means that I'm just like flat out saying no to so many things, which is opening up margin in my calendar, and it's creating space. And then I get to choose to fill that space with things that are only 90, 91, 92, right? 90 to 100. This is key, you guys. Anything that you are trying to decide if you want to go or not, right? Anything that you're like waffling on, going back and forth on, I'm not sure. Should I, shouldn't I? That's just a no, right? Think about it. Like we're filling our life with these like 45, 55, 65, 75 scores, right? Things that might move the needle, but aren't like definitely aligned with the goals and the values we have in this season, right? If your schedule is full of 65 things, like things that are rated as 65 out of 100, and in the sense of how aligned they are with your goals and values in this season, right? If your life is, think about getting 65 on a test in school. That would not be a victory, right? I'm pretty sure that was a failing score, at least like a D. So why am I tolerating, or why have I been, or why was I tolerating 65 level commitments in my actual life? And this 90% rule is a way of refusing to build a life that is made of 60s and 70s, right? Now let's pull this out of the productivity hack category for a second and put it where it actually belongs. This is actually a nervous system strategy. Every time you say yes to something, what are you doing, right? It's not just a verbal yes. For you to actually plan, attend, carry it out, follow up, whatever that yes encompasses, you are allocating cognitive resources, right? You're opening up new tabs in your brain. You are activating or relaxing your stress response, depending on what it is. You are modifying your allostatic load. That's the cumulative wear and tear from stress. And you're shaping the baseline state of your nervous system. There is a cost to every yes. And when your criteria are too broad, right? When you're saying yes to things that are 50, 60, 70, 80% aligned with where you're going, if you're asking yourself questions like, could this help? Could this be good? Should I probably do this? They're expecting me to do this. We have to do this. Your brain ends up holding more open loops. Your brain thus has to manage more invisible labor. Your brain has to track more obligations. What does that mean to your brain? Well, it means first that your prefrontal cortex, that part of your brain that's responsible for planning and decision-making and impulse control, is working overtime. It means your limbic system, your emotional brain, is more easily triggered. And then it means that your autonomic nervous system, your fight, flight, freeze, or fawn response, is more reactive. What does all that mean? It means you're more likely to live in functional burnout, but you're still showing up, right? Don't get me wrong. You're still quote unquote performing, but your internal system is running hot. And the 90% rule, it reduces all of this. It cuts the number of decisions you have to actively process, right? No more like pros and cons for all of these maybe things. It's like, if it's not 90%, nope, sorry, not for me right now. It reduces invisible labor because you're not mentally carrying all of these obligations that were not essential to begin with. And then it widens our window of tolerance because it's reducing all of these low grade stressors that aren't moving the needle, that aren't aligned with where we're going. And our nervous system isn't constantly flirting with overwhelm. Okay. The invisible layer to this, I think, is that when I say, 60s and 70s, I'm talking about all the choices that we have been conditioned to believe are, socially acceptable, probably like quote unquote good on paper. Like you could justify some good reasons to do these things, right? Might be aligned with what everyone else is doing. All the kids in your kids' classes are doing them. Your friends are doing them. The people on Instagram or social media, your coworkers are doing them, but they're not deeply aligned with your values and your capacity and what God's calling you to in this season. And this is where you tend to say yes out of obligation, or you tend to say yes out of fear, or because, you've always said yes, or because you don't want to fall behind and you have FOMO or comparison or some other reason than a clear, grounded desire, right? These are the things like saying yes to volunteer at your kids' school that you don't have the bandwidth for, right? Saying yes and signing up your kids for like all the extra activities because everyone else is doing, like an acting camp over Christmas break. Agreeing to all of the extended family plans that are going to leave you dysregulated for days. They're going to drain your energy, right? You're going to leave feeling awful. Taking on projects at work because you think someone expects you to, or you want to seem like a team player. It looks impressive, but it's totally misaligned with where you want to go, right? Staying in the relationship, the friendship, because you feel bad about setting a boundary, right? Saying yes to every little like coffee request or networking invite. None of these are bad, but I would venture to guess almost none of them are 90s. And every time we say yes to a 40 or a 50 or a 60 or a 70, we're saying no to something else, right? Every yes is a no to something else. Everything we choose in that moment, we're actively not choosing something else. So every time we say yes to a 50 or a 60 or a 70, we're saying no to what our nervous system actually needs. We're saying no to what our calling actually requires. We're saying no to what our family actually benefits from. We're saying no, maybe it's to our future self or something our future self would deeply desire. We're trading depth for volume and our body feels it. So I think a lot of women I work with are not in this like acute collapse, right? They're not in the like, I can't get out of bed, I can't get off the couch, everything is on fire state of burnout. They're in a functional burnout, right? They're still doing the things, getting the kids to school, work is still getting done, they're still making decisions and responding to texts and showing up in the meetings, but internally, right? That's the collapse. Chronically exhausted, emotionally flat, easily overwhelmed. So reactive, right? You're like, man, where did that even come from? Way more reactive than you want to be. Unable to rest, even when you have the time. Maybe it's this like you're constantly vacillating between like adrenaline and then caffeine, or this like running on pressure. You're procrastinating, and then you feel all this pressure to show up and perform and be ready by a deadline. It's the everything is technically fine, but I don't think I'm fine state. And I have spent time there, and I know what that feels like. And on the outside, it looks okay, but on the inside, you just know something is off. And I think the 90% rule is one of the best ways we can practically start to treat functional burnout at the root. I'm not telling you to do less in this like vague way. I know there's a bunch of stuff that has to get done. I'm not asking you to abandon responsibility. But what I am saying is that if you started to remove the things that are distractions, the things that are not aligned with your goals and values, the things that you were never meant to carry in the first place, it will change your life, right? And there's a trade-off to that. I get it, right? We have to be honest about that. Like applying that 90% rule means you're going to sometimes say no to things that are objectively good. You might have to say no to like a perfectly nice social event, or a pretty good business opportunity, or a well-intentioned family request, or, you know, a fun kids activity, not because they're wrong, but because they're not right for you in this season, in this nervous system, right? In this assignment. That's the trade-off. When our selection criteria are too broad, we find ourselves committing to too many options. And the cost of that, and I'm not overstating this, you guys, you probably already know this, you're probably living it, the cost is high. From a nervous system lens, the cost is high. Your sleep quality goes down, your reactivity increases, your capacity for joy shrinks, and that inner sense of just like feeling so clear and aligned, it just erodes, right? We like to pretend we can have it all. We like to think we can say yes to everything and be everything to everyone and never disappoint everyone. But the reality is that we are limited, right? We are limited beings in so many of our resources, and our biology knows this, right? The trade-offs aren't actually a punishment. They're a design feature. And you guys know Jeff and I moved this last year from Miami to Houston. And ever since we moved, this is something we've been talking a lot about. Like the fact that something can be good for us, for our businesses, for our family, and still not be right in this season for what we're called for. There's so many good, like by the grace of God, right? So many good opportunities that come our way. So many invitations to speak and collaborate, and the kids' activities and social invitations and podcast guests, all of these things. We don't live in a lack of options world. But what happens is that we actually live in an overabundance of pretty good world. And that's not, I have no interest in being there. And if we're not intentional, other people's priorities and their algorithms and their invitations are going to design our life by default. And the 90% rule is how we move from a life that is just run by default to a life that is intentionally designed. So when I use this rule, I'm essentially asking like, not, is this good? Is this a good opportunity? Is this a good thing to go to? Is this a good thing to say yes to? That's not the question. The question is this right for our family, for our businesses, and for what God has for us in this season? And sometimes, yeah, the right thing shows up clearly later. And we look back and we think, man, I'm so glad I didn't fill up that space with something that was good and okay and 60 or 70 just because I could. And then other times, that perfect alternative I think I'm waiting for doesn't show up, or at least it doesn't show up in a way that I can see it immediately. And that's where this becomes an act of trust and surrender, you guys. I'm trusting that not filling every single gap with mediocre obligations or responsibilities or commitments is okay, right? Not maximizing every opportunity that comes my way is okay. Not being everywhere, doing all the things is okay, right? Just that very act of applying the selective criteria forces me to consciously choose what I'm willing to wait for, instead of letting other people or circumstances choose for me. It's decision by design. Okay, so let's just take a second and make this extremely practical for you before we wrap up for today. Here's how you're going to use this 90% rule in your real life. So the first thing is I want you to choose a category of your life where you feel the most friction, right? What are the things that you kind of like dread or that you know just like drain your energy or take up a ton of mental space? And you're like, wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to plan this, think about this, do this, spend time with this person, right? And it might be, maybe a social event that's just coming up for you right away. Maybe it's a certain thing of kids' activities. Maybe it's something with your extended family that you've committed to. Work projects, whatever it is, pick something. And then once you have that thing, I want you to define the single most important criterion. One sentence, right? What's the most important reason that you might say yes to something like this? Maybe the criterion is like, does this deepen the relationships I care most about, right? If the answer is yes, that's a great criterion. Does this move my business in the direction I'm committed to in this season, right? Our specific goals. Does this support my nervous system? Does this support my family's nervous system in this season, right? Does this align with how I want to feel in my days? Not 10. You're going to choose one. Your nervous system loves and needs simplicity. And then you're going to rate your options from 0 to 100 against that one criterion. So maybe it was, does this align with how I want to feel in my days? How do you want to feel? It's the holiday season. How do you want to feel? Do you want to feel present? Do you want to feel calm? Do you want to feel joyful? Do you want to feel the sense of wonder about the holiday season, right? And then rate it. On a scale of 0 to 100, how much does going to this or saying yes to this or putting this on your calendar align with how you want to feel in your days? Gut level honest. Not what you think you should say. Nobody knows except for you and your body. And then act on that. Honor it. Anything under a 90? No. You do not debate it. You don't carry it around for weeks. You don't feel bad about it. You don't ask 15 friends what their opinion is. Under 90, automatic no. Waffling back and forth, automatic no. Because true yeses are like full body yeses. They feel like clarity. They are exciting. You look forward to them, right? And it may be scary. It should be, probably. It's going to feel a little bit stretchy, but holy moly, it feels clean, right? Anything less is just noise, you guys. And then the last thing is just start to tolerate that discomfort. This is important. When you start doing this, if it is unfamiliar to you, your nervous system is going to resist. Normal. It's good. It's good. Right? You might feel a little bit guilty. You might start to experience some FOMO. You might worry that you're going to disappoint someone. You might have anxiety, right? You might have an urge to like second guess your no. And this is where your nervous system needs support, right? You have somatic tools. You listen to this show. Breathe, right? Put your hand on your heart. Make your body feel safe. Remind yourself that it's okay for you to choose what is right, not just what is good. Remind yourself that you're not bad for saying like, it's not a 90 for me right now. Remind yourself every no is also a yes. Your health, your family, your calling, your future capacity. It's okay for it to feel stretchy. Can you lean into the resistance? And when you live with 90% criteria, y'all, let's talk about the payoff. I'm not just talking about like, my life feels so spacious. I'm talking about physiologically and practically. When you live by the 90% rule, I'll just speak from personal experience. What did I notice? Number one, off the bat, less resentment. Because I'm no longer saying yes from a place that's abandoning what every cell in my body wants to do. I'm no longer saying yes from obligation. My body isn't quietly rebelling later when I have to like do the thing that I agreed to do that I never wanted to do. I notice more presence. Because I'm not overcommitted to all of this stuff that's just noise and distraction. My nervous system has more capacity to actually be in the moment where I am. It's gold. My anxiety has decreased, right? There's fewer open loops in my brain. There's fewer invisible obligations. My allostatic load has decreased. I'm sleeping better because my nervous system isn't trying to process 100 like half yeses at 2 a.m. I'm more creative. I have more clarity, right? My cognitive load is lower, which means I have more bandwidth, more ability in my prefrontal cortex to do the things that move the needle. And I have such a clear sense of identity because the choices that I'm making are intentionally aligned with my values, and I have so much less inner conflict. Like, how good does that sound? It's not about having this minimalistic calendar. It's about having a nervous system that can sustain the life you actually want. Okay? You're allowed to do this. You're allowed to live a life of 90% yeses. If you remember nothing else in this episode, just remember, like, you're allowed to stop living a life that's made up of 60s and 70s and 80s, the mans, they're like, okay, maybe I should. You're allowed to decline the invitation that you actually don't want to go to. You're allowed to say no to the extra activity that your kids like don't even actually care about. You're allowed to opt out of extended family plans or not travel or not stay as long as they want you to stay, right? You're allowed to like turn down the work project if it's not aligned. You're allowed to let the volunteering be for someone else's, like, someone else's assignment this year. You're allowed to build a life with fewer, truer yeses, right? Because the reality is that we are finite, and honoring our finiteness is not failure. It's so wise. So everything we've been talking about today is part of the deeper work that we do inside of Burnout Recovery Blueprint. That's my signature group coaching program. It's for high capacity women who are tired of living in functional burnout. The running hot, the never fully rested state. We talked about it earlier. Inside of BRB, we retrain your nervous system out of chronic survival mode. We rebuild your capacity from the inside out. We help you identify and release all of these patterns, right? The overfunctioning, people pleasing, perfectionism, invisible labor, all the things that are keeping you exhausted, and help you create a life that is actually compatible, not only with your biology, but also with your calling, you guys. The next cohort starts in January. As you're listening to this, if the 90% rule feels both like relieving and also maybe a little confronting, maybe a part of you is thinking like, man, I know I need this, right? I know I can't keep living at this pace. I just don't know how to change this alone. That's exactly what BRB is for, right? We go beyond the like, say no to more things and like just set better boundaries. And we work at the level of your nervous system. We work at the level of your patterns. We work at your real life structures. Because the thing is, you don't just need like new decisions. You actually need a new internal baseline from which to make them. So if that's resonating, check out the link to BRB in the show notes. You can jump on the wait list there, get more information, be the first to save your spot for the January cohort. But I just want to leave you with a really simple, very clear invitation, because at some point today, I want you to look at your week and I want you to identify one thing that is clearly not a 90. What's the thing on your schedule this week that is not above 90%? Maybe it's a coffee date. Maybe it's an event. Maybe it's a commitment that you made casually. Maybe it's a small project you agreed to or an obligation or whatever it is. And I want you to practice releasing it kindly, clearly. You don't have to over-explain. And then I want you, this is the magic, I want you to pay attention, not just to your calendar, but what happens in your body when you remove even one 60%er, 70%er from your week. What happens when you remove some like 20s and 30s, right? What happens to your breath? What happens to your shoulders? What happens to your mood? What happens to your sense of spaciousness? That is the point. This isn't about being perfect. It's about making your life compatible with what your nervous system can actually hold. You're not meant to live on the edge of your capacity every single day. You were designed for seasons, rhythm, margin, presence. You were designed for joy. And the 90% rule, y'all, one way we can start to return to that. So I'm grateful to be walking this with you. I'm believing you're going to find as much joy and freedom from this rule as I have. I can't wait to hear all about it. I love y'all so much. Thanks for being with me. I'll talk to you soon.
If you love Mommy's Podcast, leave a review.
Thanks for listening to Alive and Well. If today's episode resonated, would you do me a favor? Take 30 seconds and leave a 5-star rating and short review. It really helps to get this show out to other people just like you who could also use the information in this podcast. And if you're ready to take the next step in regulating your nervous system, download my free Nervous System Reset Guide. It's linked right in the show notes. Inside, you'll find simple, body-based practices to help you feel more clear, calm, and connected starting today. Make sure you're following the show so you don't miss out on what's coming next, because you were made to thrive. Fully alive, fully present, and fully well. I'll see you soon.